All right, so we are going to kick things off here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We've got a nice big list of attendees, which is fantastic. Today we are going to be talking about the future of digital student data portability. This is hosted by the NAFSA TechMIG, and we appreciate you guys attending. Our webinar leader today is going to be Cheryl Darup-Boychuk. She is the CIEO of FundsV, and she's here to tell us a little bit more, lend her expertise to the topic. And the webinar here is being recorded, and we'll have it posted to the TechMIG website. Should be tomorrow for you to share with your friends and colleagues who might not have been able to attend the webinar today. But let's see if we can do a quick unmute, and Cheryl can hop on and introduce herself, and we will get things rolling. How's it going today, Cheryl?
Very good, very good. Thank you, Alex, for the intro. And I did want to mention, first off, that these initiatives that we're discussing impact all international students, including those inbound to the U.S., of course, but also as well as U.S. students studying abroad. So just to give you kind of a little bit of more of a background, I head up U.S. Journal, which is a family of international student recruitment sites. We emerged really from a print publication in the early 90s, went online in 96, stopped printing magazines in 98, and have since grown to 16 independent multilingual domains, all dedicated to promoting a select number of U.S. colleges, universities, and English language programs. So our sister site is FundsV, or Funds Verification, and that really grew out of demand from our U.S. Journal clients. So about 10 years ago, one of our university advertisers said, look, we appreciate the inquiries you generate for us, but is there any way you can qualify those students financially earlier in the admissions process? And at first, we thought it was just impossible, given privacy issues, security issues, but the issues just kept percolating. So we designed FundsV, which essentially empowers international applicants and their financial sponsors to point their online banking data and authenticated financial documents to the authority that requested it. So my FundsV affiliation led me to volunteer on a couple of different task forces for the Groningen Declaration, one for public relations and the other on enrollment and student loan portability. In another volunteer capacity professionally, I serve on NAFSA's editorial board for their magazine, International Educator. So you kind of see that my career path has really led me to discussing this future of digital student data portability. So to quickly review our learning objectives, I'll first help frame the current campus environment with some examples of vulnerabilities in the process. And then we'll focus on solutions really for the majority of the session, so you can eventually gain that confidence in authenticating data. We'll also offer a glimpse into this future of digital student data portability, which is really driven by a generation empowered by the opportunity to actively control their online footprint. So that's where I'll elaborate a bit more on the Groningen Declaration.
And just before we get rolling here, just sorry to interrupt, as we get going, Cheryl is going to be sharing a lot of really valuable and important information. No doubt you guys will have some questions, and throughout the presentation, if you do have a question, there is a questions tab on the GoToWebinar feature. Feel free to enter in your questions, and we're definitely going to leave a little bit of time at the end to run through the list and answer all of those. So don't hesitate, if or when they pop up, put them in there, and we'll devote a little bit of time at the end to tackling those questions. So thank you.
So we will, take a look at some of those vulnerabilities in the international admissions process. And, when you think about it, it's not an awful place to be. We just need to be aware and pay attention, always looking for ways to improve the efficiency and the integrity of our operations. So over the past few years, we found many, many parallels between authenticating academic credentials and authenticating financial documents. So in both cases, we've identified 4 broad categories of fraud. The first is fabrication. That's when a completely fake financial statement has been created in-house document manufacturer is when a fraudulent document has been produced by an institutional representative, basically when blank document stock has been made available for sale. Then we have misleading translations, and of course translations can be interpretive rather than literal. And also finally we've got alteration, where information on a legitimate document has been changed. So what do you think? What type of fraud is most common? And we won't tap into any of the GoToWebinar's technology here. Just think about, for example, we'll start with these two. So of these two, fabrication or in-house document manufacturer, which do you think is more popular? Fabrication, again, a completely fake financial or academic credential has been created, or that in-house document manufacturer. So in that case, fabrication wins. So what about these two? Misleading translations or alteration? Alteration, again, is when information on a legitimate document has been changed. So in that case, alteration wins. So now, from those two winners, fabrication and alteration, which is more prevalent? Alteration wins again. So, of course, we don't know for sure that alteration is the most popular, but from anecdotal data and speaking with colleagues, that's what we found. So what does that look like in real life? So I realize that not all of us work with financial documents every day, so I just wanted to give you one example. This one happens to be from Ghana. So these two documents seem to be legitimate. Now, upon closer inspection, you'll see that the dates, account numbers, and all the transactions aren't exactly the same. The only thing that's different are the names. So what probably started out as a legitimate bank statement has been altered. One name was replaced with another. And I do want to thank Ken McCaig from Old Dominion University in Virginia for providing these examples. He and I co-presented at NAFSA's Region 8 conference last week in DC, and he's got quite a collection of fraudulent bank statements, which is pretty impressive given the fact that fraud represents a really, really small percentage of all international student applications worldwide. Again, we'll probably never know the exact percentage as we simply don't know what we don't know. We are doing some work with an organization called INTCAS in the UK, that stands for Intelligent Communities Around Students, and they process hundreds of thousands of international applications for incoming students to the United Kingdom. So through their due diligence, they found a 99.03% clearance rate. So the vast, vast majority of applications that they processed are legitimate. So we have another example from Australia, another top host country. So between 2012 and 2014, Down Under witnessed a dramatic increase in the number of international student visas canceled or under review. So according to reports, that number of canceled student visas increased from just under 2,000 in 2012 to just over 7,000 in 2014. So yes, that figure as it stands alone is certainly troubling. But let's put it in perspective. 7,000 is less than 2% of more than 404,000 student visas issued in Australia in 2014. So that figure is very similar to that 99.03% clearance rate reported in the United Kingdom. Still, it's that tiny, tiny percentage that captures the media's attention. So everything that the Pi News wrote beneath the fold was true. The number of student visas canceled by the Australian government more than tripled as instances of falsified test results and or financial documents have soared. But, I often wonder, given our collective limited attention spans these days, how many readers went beyond that headline. So the moral of the story is that we really do need to get this right for a whole lot of reasons. And I think detecting fraud is just one of those reasons. And it almost seems like an afterthought, kind of a special bonus to improving the process overall. I think the real recurring themes here are improving efficiency and improving integrity of the admissions process. So the good news is that there are emerging technologies that can help from a number of different angles. How can we do better? And also, what does that look like in the real world? So in a perfect world, academic transcripts and financial documents would be received directly from the issuing institution, whether by mail or by an approved electronic means. So in the case of transcripts, that means directly from the educational institution. For financial statements, that means directly from the bank without passing through the hands of students. So we do realize that we're in this state of transition from paper-based to paperless. So alas, the world is not perfect. ECE, another really highly respected education credential evaluator, created this scale of trust for document verification. And I think we're on our way to that greenest stage where there's direct confirmation from that institution in response to a request from the authorities, whether that's the host government or the host campus, over a secure network. So let's consider the financial capacity issue. We have this very fresh data from this week's release of the highly anticipated Open Doors data. 64% of the 975,000 international students currently in the U.S. cited personal and family funds as their primary source of funding to pay for their tuition and living expenses. So in the vast majority of cases, bank statements or bank letters of reference were used early in the admissions process to satisfy that requirement to prove sufficient funds. So here's a pretty standard template, for the current system, with plenty of opportunity to manipulate, alter, fabricate bank logos, signatures, or seals, especially given today's pretty sophisticated desktop publishing capabilities. Here's an output page in a platform designed by FundsV where only data is transferred, which in essence minimizes that opportunity to manipulate, alter, or fabricate bank logos, signatures, or seals. How FundsV works.
FundsV, or Funds Verification, serves the thriving international education industry. We improve the efficiency and integrity of a critical component for most study abroad applications, showing evidence of sufficient funds to cover tuition and living expenses. Most students prove financial capacity with personal or family funds. We empower students, parents, or sponsors to point their online banking data to the student's FundsV profile in just a few minutes. Our extensive network includes some of the most popular banks in the world. If the user's bank is not represented in our network, students may also upload statements, scholarship awards, affidavits of support, or other documents. Students may submit their FundsV profile to the host campus or other authority who requested their financial data. Our robust platform features a number of secure functions that minimize the risk of third-party fraud. For example, we can detect when more than one user accessed the same online bank account. Qualified students may refresh their profiles as often as they'd like to substantiate their financial capability over time. FundsV provides an effective solution to ultimately advance global student mobility. Contact us to learn more.
So really, what's been interesting is that we're in this state of transition from paper-based to paperless. So some authorities really don't trust the online-only system quite yet. So for now, they're still insisting on a PDF. Even though we're transferring all that data electronically, they still want a piece of paper. So if that's what they want, then that's what we'll give them. But I think it's a step backward technologically as it reintroduces the vulnerability of paper-based documents, again, that can be easily manipulated. The one organization that is absolutely dedicated to defining the future of digital student data portability is the Groningen Declaration. So it's really a fascinating global initiative that I learned about at the annual NAFSA conference in Boston this past year. So not surprisingly, Groningen is focusing first on the digitization of academic credentials so citizens worldwide can consult and share their authentic educational data with whomever they want, whenever they want, wherever. So initially, central student data administration systems were invited to participate in Groningen. So you've got the National Student Clearinghouse in the U.S., CHESIC in China, UNIS from Europe, and others who have signed on to the declaration. So these are official bodies that can provide access to a citizen's aggregate educational data. And what I've learned is that most such depositories work with and on behalf of the educational institutions in an official capacity. So Groningen recognized the absence of a platform for international networking among these organizations, and they intend to fill that void.
Today, almost everything we do on the web. We book our plane tickets online, we do our banking online, and we keep our important information in the cloud, so it's always there when we need it. But we don't do that with some of the most important documents in our lives. Our diplomas. We're still dealing with them the way we have for decades, even centuries. On paper. Paper is nice and tangible, but not really practical. You can lose it, misplace it, or have it stolen. It can be torn, burnt, or eaten by your dog. And even if it doesn't, there's another problem. It could be fake. Documents can be quite elaborate to prevent forgeries, but it's not easy to establish whether you're dealing with a valid document or a piece of paper with nicely printed decorations, an impressive seal, and pretty handwriting. And even if it is the real thing, the person presenting it might be using a document that doesn't belong to them to try and pass off someone else's credentials as their own. So paper is clearly not practical. Not for you, not for the schools, universities, or employers that need your diploma in order to enroll you or give you a job. The good news is that there are organizations that register diplomas centrally in a database. They are called Educational Data Depositories. They store all the educational data that has to do with you. Until recently, these data were primarily used to print out a document on paper. But this is a thing of the past. Today, information is outdated the moment it's printed. So the depositories have done away with paper and made your educational data directly available. Which is great, because now you can access them online, just like your plane tickets, bank account, and the pictures from last year's skiing trip. And so can the schools, universities, and employers that need to check your educational data. Also, since the data come directly from the schools and universities that issue them, forgeries are no longer an issue. So now for the next step. Data depositories manage educational data in a national setting. But what if you were born in Beijing, graduated in Boston, and want to apply for a job in Zurich? That would go a lot smoother if you could choose to share your educational data internationally. To make that possible, national depositories are working together in an initiative called the Groningen Declaration. It's about the development of globally accepted standards for secure consultation of your educational data, enabling you to access and share your educational data wherever you are and wherever you are going.
Basically, Groningen's mission in a nutshell is for people worldwide, again, to be able to access and share their authentic educational data with whomever they want, whenever they want, and wherever. So that's nothing short of Herculean, right? Well, it turns out that there are other models that we can look to in other industries that have, in fact, accomplished similar monumental feats. So take financial services, for example. SWIFT is the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, and they've managed to align more than 10,800 financial institutions and corporations in over 200 countries to exchange millions of financial messages every day. And I think that SWIFT connection may be tighter than we think. Some industry experts suggest that a student's financial capacity should also be included as part of his or her international student data package. As most major host country governments, as we know, require proof of funding prior to issuing a student visa. So, I think we can certainly learn a lot from SWIFT, which seems to have struck a pretty remarkable balance between securing their platform of sensitive financial data with limited access to appropriate authorities. Of course, the whole goal is to improve the efficiency and integrity of those transactions. And, there's always risk involved. I think it's really interesting how IT security experts have started to temper expectations by really rebranding what they do. So they've gone from cybersecurity to cyber resilience, and just to make sure that a plan is in place for if a data breach would happen to occur. And of course do everything you can to prevent any type of hacking, but strategize in advance for minimizing any damage. And that balance, of course, is always a moving target. So yes, paperless is possible, and we're certainly heading in that direction. Here are some sample statistics from a public service company in Oklahoma, which I think are pretty indicative of, positive trends toward paperless transactions. So I am happy to take any questions. Let's see, I see there is one there in the box. How can U.S. universities get involved to support Groningen? Excellent question. I think when Groningen formed back in 2012, they were understandably really careful as to who they invited to participate. So again, they wanted those, kind of to secure the commitment of those huge national student data depositories. But now that they've gained momentum, they seem to be opening up a bit. I noticed just yesterday that 2 universities have signed the declaration, the University of Texas at Austin and also the University of Malaga in Spain. I would suggest if you want to get involved, maybe you can volunteer on a task force for Groningen. I suspect the Secretariat would certainly entertain that possibility. If you want to be put in touch directly with him, Herman de Loo is his name, based over in the Netherlands. I'm happy to connect you. All right, we have another question. Any advice on how to advocate for paperless in our office? I certainly understand that U.S. campuses operate at their own pace, which can be frustrating. And this probably isn't what you want to hear, but it's important to be patient. And I think I would strongly advise that you avoid a one-size-fits-all documentation policy. The types of admissions documents being sent and received just vary so much. I think at this point you really need to be flexible. Given so many different countries in conflict, for example, it's really hard to demand that you get original documents, from some places around the globe. So just be flexible, and advocate as much as you can for paperless, given cost savings. And I think during the transition, we'll be running, in many cases, 2 simultaneous systems, partially digital and partially paper-based. So, and there have been sessions at different NAFSA conferences addressing those very same issues. If we have any other questions, you're most welcome to contact me directly. Stay tuned to resources such as NAFSA TechMIG. As I'm sure there'll be more to report as we make this journey from paper-based to paperless. So thanks again for joining us. Alex?
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. I did have one more question. Of course, we are, I'm sure, used to the pace of our universities. Are there any particular examples that you know of that of universities that are leading the charge for a more efficient yet also equally as secure processes?
I do think that I would look to the University of Texas at Austin, and kind of the guy leading the charge, and many of our audience may be familiar with Robert Watkins. if he really is an expert in that academic credential evaluation, and understands that the shift to paperless is, now no doubt the way that we're headed. So, of course, UT Austin is a gargantuan university with thousands and thousands of international students, and if that office can figure out how to handle those types of challenges in advocating for a paperless office, and just establishing the systems on how to do that, I think that would be a good contact person. I also think that there are a number of software vendors who can facilitate that as well. Synapsys is one example of an organization that's really leading the charge in terms of improving those operational efficiencies that we've been talking about.
Oh,
so get in touch. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say it's great to hear, because I do see, looking at our attendee list, a number of smaller universities, and one of the follow-up questions that I would have that might be helpful is for the 1 or 2 person office, where it can be a real strain on time to go through the authentication steps, hearing about some of those potential reliable partners that could potentially outsource some of that work, I think is really helpful to know about.
Absolutely. If any other questions happen to pop in, you can always just write to me directly, Cheryl@funzy.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Cheryl, for hosting, and thank you, everyone, for attending. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we have recorded this webinar, and we'll be posting it out to the NAFSA TechMIG website. We're going to send a quick follow-up email to all of the registrants for the webinar, just with the recording afterwards. And if you have any questions in particular, you see Cheryl's email address up there. And if you do have any questions in particular about the NAFSA TechMIG, if you'd like to be more involved, if you have a simple tech question that you are hoping that either one of us can answer or we can tap into the community, feel free to shoot me an email. My name is Alex Paisner, and I can be reached at alex@globalexperiences.com. But also on the TechMIG website, you've got the information for all of the co-chairs here, and we're always happy to help with your technology-related questions. Great. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Cheryl. And we will look forward to hearing how we can further help you guys over the course of the rest of the semester.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.